All right, it's 2 o'clock. We'll convene the meeting. Give that to roll. We have a full board. Minutes of the meeting of March. Are there any additions or corrections?
Are we on the minutes?
On the minutes.
I hate to do this. I don't want to spend time on this, but there are some errors and omissions that I would like to address on the minutes. So the first one is under resident council reports. It says for the Holland Towers report, it says Holland Towers resident council updated their new copy schedule and reported that bingo license needs to be renewed in April. Housekeeping inspections were also discussed. I don't think that accurately captures the full extent of Jackie's report, which also included a specific request on behalf of the resident council that there be biannual housekeeping inspections and a checklist for tenants and a written summary, including any improvements that need to be made for the tenants who fail inspection. So what I would propose, and I'm going to have a number of these, I'm happy to forward them to you in an email so you don't have to worry about writing them down, but if people agree, I would propose the following amendment to that section in the minutes. On behalf of the Holland Towers Resident Council, Ms. Commons asked the board to consider instituting biannual housekeeping inspections, and if that isn't possible, a minimum annual housekeeping inspection. Ms. Commons also asked that a checklist be used in each case, and that a written report be given to tenants after each inspection to notify them if they pass or fail. In the event of failure, Ms. Commons requested that tenants should be told exactly what improvements need to be made. So that's my first proposed amendment. I don't know if we want to take these one by one or if I should just read them all off.
Read them all off.
Under the extermination report, there is no mention of the fact that I asked our executive director for an update on the pest control plan and whether we could get a draft of that plan for the April meeting. That's what I asked. In response to that question, our executive director said, as soon as the MOU, meaning the Holland Towers MOU, is done, we will get to that. So I propose the following amendment be added to the minutes in that section. Mr. Tompkins asked about the status of the pest control plan and if there would be a draft for the board to consider at the April meeting. Ms. Rakovich stated that we will get that as soon as the Holland Towers MOU is done. Next amendment. Under the new business, minutes say, Mr. Tompkins stated that he was working with a person for Section 8 homeownership program. There's a couple more sentences to deal with that inquiry about Section 8 homeownership. It's listed under new business, but that discussion actually happened during our Section 8 report, so it didn't happen under new business, so that just needs to be moved to the appropriate place. For some reason, it ended up under new business. Next, under new business and immediately following those notes about the Section 8 homeownership program, which again did not take place under new business, the minutes say, as Mr. Tompkins continued to press the issue with Housing Authority moving forward with the person he was helping with the Section 8 home ownership program, Ms. Yohe pointed out that Mr. Tompkins still does not exercise refrain when there is discussion about the Section 8 program that his wife could ultimately benefit from should he be granted a waiver. So that's what it says in the minutes. I think that's a very distorted account of what happened for a number of reasons. First, Marcia's comment did not come up under new business. It happened during the discussion of the resolution number 21 regarding the conflict of interest, so it was out of place. Two, the discussion was actually initiated by Sina, but the minutes make it sound like Marcia's responding to me in the Section 8 homeownership discussion. But that discussion was initiated by Sina, who asked for clarification about the nature of the conflict, so that's not captured anywhere in the minutes. Third, in response to Sina's question, Marcia offered an example of what she believes HUD would consider to be a conflict of interest, namely a motion that I made concerning payment standards for Section 8, which could affect common roots. So again, the minutes do not accurately capture the nature of that conversation. Instead, the minutes, which were drafted by our executive director, state that Ms. Yohe pointed out that Mr. Tompkins still does not exercise refrain and that his wife would ultimately benefit should he be granted a waiver. At no point did Marcia or anybody say that my wife benefits from the Section 8 program. And at no point did Marcia or anyone say that this would be a conflict even if a waiver was granted. And if you guys don't believe me, you can double check it. It's on the video recording that I shared with you all from the last meeting. That the discussion starts at the 1 hour mark, 33 minutes, 52 seconds. So I'm asking for two corrections. First, that we strike the current version from the minutes because it's incorrect. So I would like to strike everything that starts with, as Mr. Tompkins continued to press the issue, all the way down to wife would ultimately benefit should be granted a waiver. Second, I propose an amended version of this conversation that would appear in the correct place under discussion of resolution number 21. And it would accurately state that Ms. Neubel asked for clarification about the nature of the conflict, and Ms. Yohe offered an example of Section 8 finances, which she believes HUD would consider a conflict of interest. All right, next amendment. Immediately after that section under new business, the minutes say, he, meaning myself, recommended a conflict of interest policy, which was declined as it should be understood. End quote. Again, that is not what happened. What happened is that in response to Marcia's example, which I just went over, I proposed that Chris draft a conflict of interest policy for the board to consider so that we're clear about when we recuse ourselves. Sina responded that she thought it was a good idea. Marcia said most board members should know. I said it would be a good idea to still have a policy so we're clear about it. What's wrong with that? Marcia said, I don't disagree. But under the state ethics and everything, and then she talked about people going to chippers, people should know as board members. Then Chris ended the conversation by saying the easy thing to do there is I can put that together, meaning a conflict of interest policy. So, again, the discussion begins in the recording at the 1 hour, 35 minute, 24 second mark. I'm proposing the following line be stricken from the minutes because it's incorrect. That line being, he then recommended a conflict of interest policy which was declined, as it should be understood. And instead I'm proposing an amendment under discussion of resolution number 21 that states, in response to Ms. Yohe's example, Mr. Tompkins proposed to have the solicitor draft a conflict of interest policy. The idea was seconded by Ms. Neubel. Ms. Yohe said board members should know when to recuse themselves, but she didn't disagree with the idea of a conflict of interest policy. Mr. Ferry said he would put together a policy for the board to consider. Last amendment, under new business again, that huge section where all this stuff was thrown together, even though it was out of place. The minutes state, Mr. Ferry clarified that recordings must be on housing authority equipment in the event a right to know is filed. The recordings must be readily available. I went back and listened to it. Chris never said that they must be on housing authority equipment. He said it would be a good idea from a right to know perspective. So those are my amendments. Those are my proposed amendments.
Anybody else have any comments? Right.
I was going to say, I think with all those, it would be nice to see them in print before we act on them.
And like I said, I'm happy to email them to you.
All right. That being the case, we'll entertain tabling the minutes of the March meeting.
Can I make one more note? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Can we get the website updated too? Because the most recent minutes on the website currently are December 2024.
Yeah.
So we're missing January and February on the website. Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to table approval of the March minutes until the May meeting, until all board members have had an opportunity to see the proposed changes. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That carries. Okay, public comment. Okay, Jackie.
I'll be first.
Why not?
After Marcia's board meeting, I have several questions that I would like answered. I'm writing on behalf of myself, but I will be discussing these matters with the Holland Towers Resident Council and our lawyer, Attorney Quisenberry. Number 1, Attorney Ferry emphatically assured everyone that Joe Tompkins was appointed to the board by Meadville City Council and no one was trying to kick him out. Why is he the only board member that is not listed on the Housing Authority's website? Why was one of the resolutions to ask Mr. Thompson to resign? 2, a board member was very quick to point out that others had violated the Sunshine Act by going to a bar together. After the meeting, I asked Attorney Ferry about the resolutions being written so vaguely that non-board members do not understand what is being discussed. For example, resolution number such and such, conflict of interest. That's all it says. Attorney Ferry told me that he addressed that very issue in his comments. Isn't the Sunshine Act being violated by the agenda not being specific enough? This certainly isn't transparency. The agenda isn't posted online or for the public until barely 24 hours before the meeting. Isn't this a violation of the Sunshine Act? There isn't enough notice for the public to be prepared if something is being voted on, it affects them and they want to attend. This certainly isn't transparency. A board member asked if the agenda and information could be sent at least a week ahead of time so the board could adequately prepare to discuss and vote on the issues. This indicates to me that the board in the past did not review the information thoroughly and ask questions, but instead agreed with everything submitted. Is this a violation of some sort that the information is not available even to the board until the last minute? Again, this certainly is not transparency. At the last board meeting, there was a discussion on write-offs that had to be done before the fiscal year ended. Before the vote, shouldn't Housing Authority have to document their effort to clear these matters with the tenant before it went to the board? By the board writing these former tenants off, the tenants' rights to ever live in public housing again would be denied. Was every effort made to contact these individuals to resolve their issues? Were those individuals aware of the board's action? Were those tenants' rights violated? Number 3, at the work session meeting on January 29th, Attorney Ferry told the board that the first order of business would be to vote on a new chair. At the February meeting, Attorney Ferry was not present and asked the board not to vote on a chair. After March's meeting, where a new chair was still not elected, I asked Attorney Ferry for a reason, and his response was, you can see they, the board, can't agree. The vote doesn't have to be unanimous. There is no reason to delay a vote because a couple of members aren't going to get what they want. There was no discussion or delay about the original chair because that was what the majority wanted. Meadville City Council did not reappoint the board member that was elected. It is evident the power of the board has shifted, and most of the board members believe that the board's role is to hold the executive director accountable. This is one of the few boards in town where the executive director has so much influence. Isn't it time for the board to vote on the chair and deal with the outcome? Thank you for taking the time to answer these questions. Jackie's comments.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Other people have comments. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is James Campbell, and I am the Director of Housing Services for Common Roots. With the agenda coming out late, a couple of our tenants that received Section 8 wanted to come speak, but one has to work and the other one was feeling really overwhelmed by what's going on. He prepared a statement that I would like to read. My name is Daniel Franz, and I live at 1088 Market Street in Meadville. I've been living in this house since 1981, and in my current apartment since 1994. I have received Section 8 since 1996 in that same unit, so almost 30 years. I've been calling since March to find out about my renewal and have not heard anything back. I have physical health problems and mental health problems, and I do not want to move. I like where I live, and I want to stay here. End of statement. The next one, my name is Jason Burrows, and I reside at 306 Poplar Street in Meadville with my wife and daughter. I absolutely love my home because not only did I grow up in the same house, but I get to beautify the property with flowers in the spring and summer and have an amazing light display at Christmas. My wife loves our home because there are little to no steps, which helps her with her back problems. My wife's mental health has changed for the better since we moved in back in June. My current home holds a lot of memories of when I was a child that now I get to share with my own child. I have come so far in life to get where I am today. I'm within walking distance of my job and my doctor's office. With my income, I am able to afford the rent, but anywhere else I would be struggling to make ends meet. Please look into your hearts and let us stay in my childhood home and continue to make my new memories. Sorry, and here, if I may, this is actually in our video that we have.
Not what you want. So Common Roots was me and my new wife when they told us that we did get the apartment. And this is going to be our long-term permanent residence. And our daughter, she's going to end up taking over.
So that was from Jason's mouth himself. We don't benefit greatly from the Section 8 program. Our rents are well below fair market rent, which keeps the cost burden for the Section 8 vouchers themselves down. We don't charge fair market rent. We try and keep it affordable and reasonable for folks that live there so that they can have money to use in our community and live a good life. We're not doing this as some rich landlord. We're doing this to better our community. And I just ask that you please let our tenants stay.
Thank you, Jim.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, I'm Rebecca, and I'm Danny Francis' sister. I'm here to facilitate for him. Like he was saying, he's lived there a long, long time. He's always been on Section 8, always lived there throughout. I don't even know how many owners. He called me a couple months ago saying that nobody's getting back to him about his Section 8 voucher, which was actually supposed to be up April 1st. He knows when things are due. So he's been calling for a couple months. He likes where he lives. And he does not want to move. And I'm a little upset that why didn't somebody tell him 3 months ago that this could be a problem? Because where am I going to find him a Section 8 apartment in Meadville? There's just no way. There's not enough Section 8 apartments. Landlords don't want to do it because they don't get a big reimbursement or something. I don't know. I don't care. This is my brother, and he's lived there for a long, long time. And I don't know what the discrepancy is with Common Roots, and really, I don't really care. Like, somebody needs to take care of this. You can't just like, oh, well, we're not going to renew this. You got to find an apartment like within a month. How can you do that to somebody who's lived there like that long? With mental health issues, getting medical issues, like that's just ridiculous to me. Like something needs to change with this process. And it shouldn't matter like who the landlord is. Like if a landlord is willing to take Section 8, you should jump on it. There are so many people that are homeless, that are looking for housing and everything, and yet you're going to like, not let Common Roots have 2 people on Section 8. That's the most ridiculous thing to me. What are these people going to do? Like, has anybody even thought about that? Like, what am I going to do with my brother? I live in a 1-bedroom. Like, I can't do this. Like, somebody needs to take responsibility for this whole thing. It's not like a little thing. You're messing with people's lives here. Like, there's no way he could have come and talked. He's very high anxiety. He wouldn't even walk in this room, let alone anything else. That's why I am here, to facilitate for him. So I beg of you to look at this from a different angle, if you will, about the people that are actually involved with this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Colleen Anthony. This is my first ever coming here. I'm with my caseworker. We have been through the ringer. First, we were dealing with Mrs. King. She has since retired. My voucher application went in a year and almost 2 years ago. And I talked to her a couple times a year, right over here. I sent emails when I found out she retired. I just got response back from a Charlotte stating that Vanessa took over and that she wanted to know if I put in an application by paper or by electronic. And that's the end of what I've heard from her. That's the first response I've gotten from anybody since she retired. Mrs. King basically is being blamed because according to, I don't know who, and I won't name names, you guys are putting off on a lady that did a lot because she ran ragged. Mrs. King did. Anybody that knew her, she ran ragged. She did everything. And now she's having her name basically trashed because if you put in a paper application, they're saying that your application's not on the waiting list. I haven't been told that, but I would really like to know where I am on that waiting list because, again, like everybody else here, I can't afford my rent. I am barely making it. I had a savings from when I went on to Social Security, and now it's dwindling. But I like my home. I have so many health problems. And I'm telling you, if that's what you guys are going to do, I would really like to talk to Mrs. King and let her know that you guys are slandering her. That's horrible if that's what's going on. And I want to know where my name is on that list. I have a right to know. This is ridiculous. And I got on a site and there's no vouchers here, but there's vouchers in Titusville. Isn't that Crawford County? So why can't you take vouchers from Titusville and give them to the people on the list here? And don't tell me that, Titusville no, bull crap. There are people, like she said, there are people that are homeless. Don't do this. It's ridiculous. I'm willing to wait on the list wherever I'm at, but tell me where I'm at. We've gone to all kinds of people. We've sent emails. My caseworker's done everything for me. She's talked to people, and I know she's talked to all kinds of people, and she's been talking to somebody on the board, and I will not say who it is, but this is getting ridiculous. You guys are supposed to be here to help us, and you're not. You're not at all. I'm going to have to choose whether to eat, take my medicine, or pay my rent and have a house. You guys are ridiculous. And I sit here and I'm thinking, all these people are having problems too? Shame on you. Shame on you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, I'm Iris Cole. I live here at Holland Towers. I have talked to Shar and told her about the hallway, in the lobbies on our floors, the windows that, especially on 6, that keep getting opened. Over 10 years ago, we had a fire on 5 because someone who was smoking and was on oxygen set herself on fire along with her chair, and the then fire captain said, no more. No more smoking, no more opening up the windows, it's a fire hazard. I'd just like to know, I was told by Shar the other day that she was going to talk to Vanessa about it and see if there could be signs put up again or what. But I know I don't want to go through another fire. I love living here, and this is the only place I can afford. I'm on limited income. I'm on Social Security. But I love it here. I love most of the people that are here. But I was told not too long ago when I talked to Jackie earlier that the new fire captain said it's okay to have the windows open. So someone please explain. Thank you.
Thank you, Everson.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, we thank you for your comments. And we'll be asking the staff to address those that we can address in a timely manner. We've been invited some guests from Active Aging, the Center for Family Services, and CHAPS, and I guess they were listed in alphabetical order. And so, everybody understands that we've been trying to address a problem with bed bugs for several years now, and I guess I would say that most everybody in this building has been working with us to try to eradicate the problem. We do have some tenants, however, who well-meaning tenants who need help with life skills, need help with understanding how to keep an apartment clean, and that's not within the realm of this agency. So we were hoping that maybe all of you, or some of you, or one of you may be able to help address some of the problems that we face with tenants that really need some help. That's beyond our purview. So I don't know who wants to start, but...
I'm Becky Wilkinson. I'm the Deputy Director at Active Aging. Our director is not able to meet here. She is in Harrisburg. So I wanted to just kind of say what we can do. We can absolutely collaborate with the Housing Authority, and we could have been doing that all along. The last communication we've had with the Housing Authority was in August of 2023. We've had no other calls since then in regards to anybody here that needs assistance. We regularly come down to this building. We've never not come down to this building. Our caseworkers have been in conditions way worse than a bed bug. Okay, so our services have never been interrupted. Case management services, the services that we provide are contracted providers, whether it be a personal care agency. They may not come here just simply because they have other consumers to see out in the community, and they cannot pass bed bugs to that next person. So we do have contractors with us, with our services, but our caseworkers have always been here. So we had received an email in August of 2023 in reference to local agencies not doing enough to clean the apartments of low-income elderly residents and prep for extermination. In the past year, we have received no communication from the Housing Authority. We called the Department of Aging. They have received no communication from the Housing Authority. So we can't help if we don't know who these people are. We have resources where I can look these people up to see if they're eligible for our services. Many of the people that live here aren't even over 60. Some of them aren't, okay? A lot of the people that live here are on Medicaid services. It is against our regulations to provide services to anyone receiving Medicaid services, so we can't even provide services to those people. Each one of those people have a service coordinator with an MCO, with an insurance company. If you call us, we can get you connected to their service coordinator. There are waiver monies to help clean, if they can find an agency to come in here and do it. So I know that, we're very fortunate to have agencies that work together. We frequently call CHAPS, Center for Family Services, the Human Services of Crawford County, the mental health system, the intellectually disabled system. We are all in communication with each other. So we can collaborate with the Housing Authority. They need to call us. That's as simple as that. So that's all.
Thank you, Becky.
Yep.
You taking this, Dave? Are you taking this? Are you leading the conversation?
I just, I'm not leading the conversation. We asked these representatives to come and address what opportunities they may have for us to utilize in addressing some life skill problems of some of our residents, which are as important to us as any of the other residents.
I'm Diane from Center for Family Services. I'm the housing supervisor. And we just do not provide those services. We don't go out, we don't have people to go out and help people prep and do cleaning and stuff. Our only department that does that is contracted through CYS, and there have to be children in the home. So we would not be the agency that you're looking for.
Thank you. Good job.
CHAPS?
I'm Sandy Farkas. I'm the Housing Solutions Supervisor at CHAPS. We offer a variety of supports for individuals that have mental illness and or those that are experiencing homelessness or housing instability. We recognize there are times when their illness can negatively impact their housing stability. Perhaps they have a bout of severe depression that's causing them to lack the motivation to get up out of bed and clean. Perhaps they are experiencing mental health symptoms which are disruptive to neighbors or that result in some minor damage to their units. Some may lack the skills to manage their money or their illness, and makes them make some poor decisions. But we can offer assistance for those folks. We have our mobile psychiatric rehabilitation program. It offers a one-on-one caseworker that is able to provide support, skills building, and connections to other community resources and benefit programs. We can help in the home and in the community. And this program is designed to help participants reach their recovery goals. The eligibility is adults over 18 with a documented mental illness. We also offer certified peer support. The workers are advocates with lived experience, and they're active in their own recovery. So they're able to eliminate that stigma that goes along with mental health. They're role models for the folks they're working with, and they can provide hope and inspiration for those individuals. They also provide services in the home and community, and the eligibility is the same, adults over 18 with a mental illness. Our Housing Solutions program offers one-on-one support to individuals and families who are homeless or near homeless in Crawford County. The goal is to provide referrals and connections to community resources that those people need in order to maintain their housing. They can assist with skills building in the home and community referrals to prevent homelessness. The level of assistance varies based on the person. All of these services are very individualized. It can be as simple as a referral to another agency. It can be doing a warm handoff and helping build that rapport, or it can be side-by-side work where we're assisting and helping build those skills. The eligibility are households that are facing eviction or are literally homeless. We also provide representative payee services at CHAPS, as well as the ARC. The ARC also provides that for individuals with intellectual disabilities. That is for individuals who receive Social Security benefits, and we ensure that their bills are paid in a timely manner each month. Social Security must mandate that service, but CHAPS can assist individuals who are interested in that service and help them navigate that process to get it moving. All these programs I'm talking about are voluntary at CHAPS. There's no cost to the individual. And in regard to housekeeping, we don't provide the service. We don't have workers to go in and clean their home, but we can teach them how to do those things, and we can also encourage them to use some of their money to maybe pay a cleaner. Maybe they have a friend who can come over and clean for them, or we can refer to a professional agency for cleaning. Early identification of those households is very key in preventing homelessness. When we receive referrals, though, unfortunately, sometimes the individual is very reluctant to work with us. They may not respond to phone calls. They may not respond if we just show up at their door and say, hey, we got a referral. We're here to help you. They don't know us. So warm handoffs would be very beneficial. If whoever did the referral at the housing authority could schedule a time with a worker to actually go and introduce us to that person, that would be amazing. I think we would see better results if they were able to know that this is a trusted person in the community. That would be the best case scenario. Supervisors at CHAPS, myself, and there's several other supervisors there, we welcome phone calls for individuals that need help. Even if you don't know if they may be eligible for a program, give us a call and we'll try to help you problem solve. If we can't offer the service, we'll try to find an agency that can. Also, I wanted to bring up, I know you mentioned that you don't have the capacity to do these things to eradicate bed bugs here at Holland Towers. But at a regional housing meeting I was just at last week, Clarion County Housing Authority employs a resident services coordinator. Their job is to do frequent home visits for their tenants, build rapport with those tenants, and identify any potential issues that could lead to housing instability. That could be looking for bed bugs when they're in there. That could be looking for damages, housekeeping issues. The list goes on and on. It's important to have a body in there regularly to be checking on folks. That services coordinator is able to connect those tenants to different community agencies and assist. Those agencies can then come in and assist with whatever potential issues are going on to avoid that housing authority having to file for eviction. That resident service worker was able to prevent 85 evictions last year. It's a cost savings for their housing authority, and I would be more than happy to connect you with that person so you can learn more about their program.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. I have a few questions, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
So I appreciate you all coming today. I really appreciate those presentations. Go ahead, Sandy.
Lynn has something.
Oh, Lynn, you're going to go too. I thought you were speaking for Chaps.
Yep.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Thanks.
Is that okay? Am I allowed to bring up a chair?
Sure.
My glasses are broken. I'm not going to be able to read otherwise. Hi, my name is Lynn McCumber, and I'm the executive director at CHAPS. Thank you for this invitation. We really appreciate being here, as we believe that public housing is a vital resource for so many individuals and families in our community, especially the elderly, those with limited income, and special needs. In our many years providing housing opportunities and supports, we witnessed that decent, affordable housing can make a huge positive impact in the quality of a person's life. Sandy spoke about available supports that CHAPS can offer. I would like to talk a bit about our experience with effective property management, and as at least we have learned on our journey for the populations that we serve, as it relates to today's discussions. I know we were asked to come here and talk about supports, and this is part of it, but I really have come to learn that, like, the supports are sort of, they are there, but the management is so vital. They must work hand in hand. So to start out with, just to give you a little background, CHAPS owns and or manages close to 50 units in our community, all that are targeted for individuals and families who are low income. Most of our tenants have experienced issues related to homelessness, mental illness, and many other challenges. Our goal as property manager is to provide decent housing and connections to support and resources to pave the way for success. In this discussion today, I'd like to use as my example the Snodgrass building, of which I know the Housing Authority is familiar with, as you had managed it for over 25 years. In November of 2024, the Housing Coalition, Crawford County Coalition on Housing Needs, asked CHAPS to manage the Snodgrass building after the Housing Authority had decided to end their management contract. At that time we agreed to do that, and at that time of going in and making an assessment of where we would begin, the building was fully occupied but was in bad shape. Honestly, it was really in terrible shape. The common areas, the hallways, the stairwells, railings, windows, etc., were extremely dirty and did not appear to have been cleaned for a very long time. 5 of the apartments had bed bugs, and the entire building was extremely infested with cockroaches. The cockroaches were active in every single unit and common area. There were also many units that needed various repairs. The fire alarm system was not working, and the disabled lift was no longer working. All of these things had resulted in the building being out of compliance for quite some time. Fast forward to today, I'm happy to say that after a really lot of work, a lot of teamwork, the building and all units are clean, in good repair, and I hope completely pest free. I'd like to share a little bit about how we approached the situation upon our work that began in November, and how we are moving forward. First, we are regularly cleaning all common areas. We have employed staff doing that. That includes hallways, stairs, railings, the community room, the basement. This first took an extensive deep cleaning, and now will continue to be done on a weekly basis consistently. Second, our property manager, which is someone employed, I believe, 5 hours a week, something like that, as part of another job there, is conducting weekly apartment checks every single week. They don't necessarily take long, 5 minutes, maybe sometimes longer. But as time goes on, these may move to 1 time a month, depending on each situation of the tenant. She takes a close look at things and checks in with the tenants to see if they have any concerns. If she sees issues she is concerned with, she will let the tenant immediately know, and maybe sometimes, depending on the scenario, put that in writing and follow up on those concerns within days or the following week, depending. Third, we had to really initially educate each tenant on what needed to be done to prepare for extermination, for effective extermination. That's the thing. You can exterminate, but you have to affect. And we learned a lot. If bait is put down for cockroaches and there are still crumbs all over the floor and counters and dirty dishes and a lot of garbage and food, the cockroaches are not going to be interested in the bait. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating something you all already know. It's something I've learned a lot about. Our guide was no food left out, counters must be cleaned, the floors cleaned, garbage out daily, dishes done daily, things like that. We also offered support in ways of, do you need a worker? Do you need the manager to come in and check more often to tell you if it's correct or not? Do you want to pay someone to help you get organized? Things like that, if the tenants needed that. Those who, the majority of the individuals in the building were really excited to move forward, and really worked well on this. There were some who were really not too big on moving forward, and there were discussions that they would very likely face eviction because we wanted to get the building healthy, and it's all for one when you're in a congregate building. There were some tenants who did not want to do that and chose to move out. We did not need to evict anybody, but had they not moved out, we most likely would have proceeded with eviction with those tenants. Once the apartments were ready, this was a pretty intensive, maybe 3-week process. We contracted with an exterminator to exterminate the entire property. Every apartment, every space, every hallway, ceilings, basements, etc. We have now done this extensive extermination 3 times, once each month for 3 months. It was costly, but very necessary. Each time we know the exterminator is going to come, we go into every unit in advance to make sure it's ready. You know, we're talking to them at least the week before and then the day before to make sure. If we have reports of any bugs in the future or we notice it, we plan to continue the same process and respond immediately. We're, having a lot of dialogue with how to do that. We know that usually it's never just one apartment because bugs move. All of our tenants have had discussions with us and understand, and it will be in the leases in the future, have agreed to having regular apartment checks done and to accept extermination treatment as needed in the building in the future. We've explained, as I said earlier, that the only way the building will be healthy is if everyone does their part, that, they're really all in this together. The building is now, ready to have a PHFA visit. It will now be in compliance, and we will continue to move forward. We know that it's really not just renting to people when we've accepted a mission of renting to people who might have special needs and limited skills. It's a much higher level than that, and we've accepted that mission as a property manager. I hope these comments are helpful and relevant in some way. As Sandy said, we are willing to partner when we can. We are not a cleaning service. I don't know that anybody's a cleaning service. It's about coming up with creative and specific plans for each individual to try to help, achieve success. And, we know that our mission is not just about providing housing, but helping our tenants to be successful and having the best possible quality of life. So, thank you.
Lynn, can I ask a specific question about the extermination?
Yeah, you're hard to hear, so I've got to stay here.
Can I ask a specific question about the extermination process? And I have money comments and questions, but this one in particular. So what we've been told, the problem here for our bed bug issue, the main issue that we've been told consistently over and over is that it's the tenant's fault. That essentially the tenants aren't doing their part with housekeeping. And even if they were, and even if their room is treated, they will leave the apartment, it gets treated, they'll come back and they'll bring the bugs back. So just that's a really specific concern. I'm wondering if you guys had to deal with that at Snodgrass. When you treat the whole building, what happens? Those tenants leave, they come back?
Well, first of all, I'm not an exterminator. I can just speak from some personal experience with this building and a lot of other people that we've worked with is sometimes that could happen. Someone could bring something back and then you would want to hopefully observe it and treat it immediately. But I think the biggest challenge is when there's an infestation problem and it doesn't get addressed thoroughly. Bugs move around the building. My friend's son was a medical student and he ended up in a building that his next door neighbor had them, and then he got them, and he had never been in their apartment, and they had never been in his apartment. The people, the neighbors, bugs walk and they move. So, that's the biggest issue. We probably will get on some type of a monitoring and prevention schedule regardless. I think it's kind of the world we're in today, to do this on a more, I'm not saying it's monthly, but what is it? And in our own building, we have so much traffic in our building. We do a minimum of typically every second month we get our building sprayed. Sometimes it's 3 months. It just depends, for what we call prevention. The walls, I was, because that lasts 30 days, and if there's what the exterminator calls a hitchhiker, they will walk through it and, they won't, continue on then. I saw that I was visiting family in the South recently in a very, very nice apartment condo type facility, and we were there and we had to leave because they were all getting sprayed for prevention,
Do you guys care if I ask some more questions? So just to be clear, what you were saying, and I have questions for the whole group too, but I'm going to kind of go backwards. You're saying essentially, so the Housing Authority had managed the Snodgrass building for 25 years. And then,
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Until very recently. And when we discontinued the contract, I think it was just as I was coming onto the board that had happened, right before. You chaps took over as the property manager for the building and found the building in disrepair, found it terribly dirty, as you said, found it filled with bed bugs, found it filled with cockroaches. Right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, it was not in good shape at all.
All right.
But,
I don't want to necessarily relitigate what our process was for how we took care of that building. I think it's clear that we didn't do our job, but I'll set that aside for now. I'm more concerned about speaking to everybody, particularly the active aging folks and the CHAPS folks. If you could speak a little bit to collaborations and work with the Housing Authority in the past, and then how that works now, and if it's been the same, if it's changed over time, because I know who was it? Becky from Active Aging was saying things like, "You haven't heard from us since 2023." Right? That was correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, that was the email. I mean, we generally wait. Like, I've been there 22 years.
Okay.
We used to frequently get calls from the office manager that were, about one tenant or another. We'd always come down to visit. And the only calls that I get are tenants complaining about being treated back poorly by the staff. That hasn't happened the last couple of years, but and I mean, we can work with any, we'll work with it. You can ask any of these agencies here. We are in frequent contact with all social service agencies to try to help people. And we can do that. I mean, if we get called from Titusville, the Central Towers, we get calls all the time. And we help the people work things or get them hooked up with services. But again, if they are on Medicaid services, we can't help them. We can only give the information on who their service coordinators are because they're getting paid for Medicaid. That's to the extent.
Well, and again, I appreciate that, and I guess what I'm going to encourage is, because I know I checked on several clients in this building that we had referred and were told that there was nothing that can be done, so I guess I'm going to encourage staff to reach out again and see if we can't connect certain clients who really have needs that they're unable to meet. And maybe we can make that connection that has fallen through the cracks.
And even if they're under 60, we have the ability to find out if they're on services and if they have a service coordinator.
Yeah, most of these were well over 60, so that shouldn't be a problem.
They don't want the help.
But we can't, all help is voluntary.
Yeah. We can't force them.
We can't force somebody to take help.
And I mean, that's where they're not being clean, and that's where they're going to need a victim.
The only solution. But if we see a situation where an individual has a mental illness, we'll refer to CHAPS, we'll refer to the county. If maybe they can get services through family services or another social service agency, we make those referrals. So we have probably right now 4 or 5 current people in this building that have our services. But throughout the years, we've had many more.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right now, we only have 4 or 5. You know, that doesn't mean in 5 years we'll have 20. You know, it really depends on the service and what we have and what our resources are. Even with our regular services, we don't have cleaning services. The only time that someone can get light housekeeping is if they get help with the bath. Okay, so and we are regulated to those program standards. So we can't pay for someone to get, with the lottery funds, we can't pay to have somebody's house clean if that's all they're getting done. It has to be hands-on care. And those are our regulations and what we have to go by our program standards. You know, we used to not have, because do you still have call bells here?
And some.
Okay, so we used to not put our ERS units in here because there was a call bell. You know, we fought for that, and now we finally do have ERS units in this building, maybe if our people have them here. But that service is going to go away because we don't have the funding for that anymore. You know, our block grant hasn't been increased in eons. You know, we're still serving more people with the same amount of money. So for us we can't provide clean. You know what I mean?
So what I'm hearing is you all are available to help connect residents to the necessary services. It's just that we need to be in communication with them.
I didn't know who they are. We get calls daily on people who need services. You know,
Who are those calls from?
Everybody.
From the housing authority staff?
No,
Okay.
from doctors' offices, from the hospitals, from agencies. You know, we take referrals every day for people that need services.
So when the last time you heard from housing authority staff was in 2023?
I don't know that we've had a referral from anybody here since, you know, the communication that we had in August of 2023 was Ms. Rokovich sending an email out to people like Lynn, Chaps, and our director.
Right. And like Sandy was saying, early intervention is crucial on this, and if we're not reaching out, right, we're dropping the ball. What is our process? Have we been connecting with these agencies?
If the tenants don't want their help, we can't force them. We can't call the agency and say, hey, this tenant needs this help. And they come in, and the tenants, the tenant, we can do that, but they don't, tenants say, I don't want your help, and they leave.
Well, they're saying we can still make a referral.
Right, we can make that referral.
So are we making those referrals?
When we can. But I know there were referrals in the last year. I know there were referrals.
To who?
It was probably, I know, to Active Aging, and it wasn't emails, it was phone calls. Because I know we were working with one particular tenant here, and we were basically told that the only way to get her help was to give her an eviction notice.
I don't know if people from Active Aging have a response to that.
Well, there's 20 people that answer the phone there. You would have to send an email with the name of the person.
We would automatically take the referral and call that person. We can't, if they say, no, we don't want your services, then that's the end of that conversation.
Right, so if we've made the referral, Joe, and the tenant says no, we can't do any more, and they can't do any more. So it basically stops.
Like I suggested, if the housing authority staff can connect with a worker from one of these agencies and go together in person, you may have better success.
Right.
Yeah, if I can respond to that, I'm jogging my memory from years past. You know, a big part of this is early detection. The sooner there's a sense that there's a struggle, the better the chance to solve the problem. And I'm remembering I'm going to go way back, Alan and Suedes. I just remember they were the direct service managers. We would get a lot of calls, and they would be seeing that something's changing, or there's a problem. And they would make that call and say, and there would be an agreement to come down and meet. Part of that is also hopefully relationship building, that there's already some trust here with a property manager and a tenant, that you're going to go, hey, these people can help you, Sometimes there's a lot of really good outcomes and stories, but sometimes it doesn't work. And they're like, no, you're not coming in here. And then it does need to be an eviction. And sometimes an eviction notice alone, which happens to us a lot, will then affect, I don't want to be evicted. Okay, are you willing then to work with someone? And you know, it just depends. And sometimes people will then, at that stage, agree, and sometimes they still won't. And sometimes people need to be evicted. You know, that if anything, it's about setting the bar too. And once the bar is set, then people talk and neighbors talk, and they know then this is the bar. We've seen that. It's been amazing in the Snodgrass building, the level of housekeeping without like people paying for a cleaner service, how much some people have stepped up there because they know the bar has been raised, and there's some celebration to that too. Like, your place looks great, thank you. Just really trying to make it a collaborative effort.
I would like to add something from the perspective of someone who lives here. What they're saying is correct. You don't have to have the services. But the people here don't understand what the consequences are if they don't cooperate. Because if they do have disabilities, mental health issues or physical disabilities or whatever, where the breakdown is they've lived here for 15, 20 years and it's never been a problem before, so why is it now? They don't understand what their consequences are going to be if they don't change.
So I'd like to say something too, in regards to referrals. Even if we were to get a referral from someone, like say housing, we couldn't call that person unless that referral included a signed authorization form from the tenant saying that they wanted our services. We can't just be cold calling people. We have to have that in their file before we could do that.
So what I've taken away from this conversation is all the work that you all are doing, particularly with the Snodgrass building as an example, where as property managers, you went in, you cleaned up our mess, frankly, and you worked closely with the residents to make sure that they were getting the housekeeping in order and getting prepared for the extermination. I've been on the board now since November, and I gotta say, I am sick and tired from hearing from our staff and members of our board where we're constantly blaming our tenants for problems that have been going on for years. I take the fact that, tenants need to cooperate, no doubt about it, but I'm hearing lots of examples of things we could be doing as property managers. That's our job too. It's our job to make sure that there's decent housing and we're taking care of these people. And I feel like we continually drop the ball. Something has got to change. And I think that this is going to be part of our discussion later about the annual housekeeping as an issue. I like the idea of a resident services coordinator. I think that's something we should visit. That's probably outside of this discussion. There are things we should be doing, and we continually fail at what we're supposed to be doing as property managers. So I really appreciate you guys coming. I appreciate you guys informing us about your side of things, because again, when we're here and we don't hear from you, we get I don't want to say one side, but we get, one version of this, which is we reached out to Active Aging. We reached out to CHEPS. They don't want anything to do with us. They don't step in until you get evicted. Clearly, that's not the problem, even though that's what we've been told.
Once it's really far gone, it's really hard to do anything but eviction, really, honestly. It's early on, it's the early detection. I do want to say one other thing that we would invite some collaboration on. We're hoping to have a little more infrastructure and support to start using what are called heat treatment machines. They're not necessarily probably effective in Holland Towers, although electric ones might be, but Human Services purchased them a couple years ago, and we got one training, but we haven't had the infrastructure to utilize them yet, but we're hoping to really get that going and bring a trainer in again, because for scattered site and low apartments, they kill every part of the life cycle. They kill the eggs, they kill the James took the training. He would know more than me. But we're really hoping that, for example, in the Snodgrass building and some others that we have with just maybe 4 units in a building, that when that happens, that's going to be a much more effective way to eradicate. I know you have so many properties, and it just might be, takes a little work. You have to make sure food and medicine is in the fridge or somewhere. But it's what hotels use. It's what dorms use. We would be happy to collaborate. The machines exist and they very much need use.
So I'd like to get the ball rolling on this collaboration process. I just want to start. I don't know if a motion is in order, but I would like to move. I would move that by the next meeting, by the May meeting, because I'm a little confused about the process by which we're reaching out to these people, and if we are making referrals. I would like to see a written discussion of that process. What is our process for reaching out to these different agencies? What's the process of working with tenants to make sure they become compliant? I would like that all written out so it's clear so that we as a board can consider it and see if there's any improvements we can make. And I would move to have that plan or that process drafted for us at the next meeting in May.
I don't know that necessarily has to be a motion. You're just essentially asking that it be listed as an agenda item for deliberation.
But I want to see something concrete on paper that we can then discuss.
You want to see something in your board packet with respect to...
Right. Yeah. And my concern is without making a motion, like at the last meeting in March, I asked for a number of things, including a plan for an annual housekeeping inspections. That was not included in our board packet for this month, even though I asked for it and we agreed as a board. We had a consensus. So my only concern in leaving it kind of open, Chris, is that we'll end up with the same result. So I wonder if we'll get better results if I make a motion.
May I?
Please.
If I recall, before we did when you were talking about the housekeeping, Chris brought up that we probably already have some of that written into some of our current policies, like our lease and our admission and occupancy. And he and I were going to go through that and see what we already had in place instead of reinventing the wheel.
Sure.
Okay? Yep. So that's why you don't have anything. We were going to go back and look to see what we already had.
Okay, but my concern is that if we don't put a specific timeline on it, if we as a board do not ask the executive director to produce this within a specific timeline, it continues to get kicked down the road. Same thing goes with our pest control plan. Same thing goes with some other plans. So I would make a motion that we have that written plan or that process drafted for us to consider for our board packets.
Have you read the lease yet? Have you read the lease
Yes.
that I gave you?
Yes.
Did you see stuff in there about housekeeping and regular inspections?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying
So we're covered in the lease.
You're saying our entire plan that describes how we reach out to agencies, how we work with tenants, that's all covered in the lease? Because that's what I'm asking.
saying as far as the housekeeping inspections themselves, it is covered in the lease that the tenants need to let us come and do those inspections.
So I feel like you're saying two things. You're saying, hey, Chris and I were going to go research it, but now you're saying, hey, it's already all in the lease.
Well, there's certain aspects, Joe. I mean, you're asking for things, but you don't have basically an outline of exactly what you want.
I'll tell you exactly what I want.
Then I'll tell you what. Why don't you email me an outline that I can work with, and I'll see what I can do.
That's not good enough for me. I don't want to see what you do. I want
You have a motion that you've made. Is there a second to the
I'll
motion?
second.
So the motion's been seconded.
And just to be clear, the motion is to have a written draft that explains our process for reaching out to these agencies, for providing referrals, to helping tenants become compliant. What is our process?
It's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay.
I'm going to say nay because I don't think we're ready for that yet.
So that passed 3-2.
That's correct.
I don't have any other questions, but again, thank you. I don't know if you
thanks.
All right, I want to thank all the
Thank you,
Christina
everyone.
does have a comment.
I did have a comment. I think it was Sandy that mentioned the resident initiatives coordinator, and I know at a previous board meeting I had asked why our resident initiative coordinator does not do what the one you were talking about does. And I was told that management was then, that's in their job description, it's not her job description. So management is responsible for making those referrals.
Yes.
Informing tenants that this stuff is available.
Yes.
Okay, and the other thing I want to say is that I think someone back there hit on the essential issue here is the relationship between the housing authority and tenants is not a relationship that I necessarily would say is characterized by trust. So if I'm being offered help, I was a resident of housing authority for 17 years, If I'm being offered help by someone that I don't feel like really wants to help me, of course I'm not going to accept that help. Or if I don't trust that person. I'm not saying that's true of everyone. I'm saying that's true of a lot of residents. I don't know how we address that. I just think it's worth noting.
And just to be clear, so you said a resident services coordinator, well, we have a resident initiative coordinator, so those are two different positions. Ours would be different. So we'd have to create.
But I will send you the information. Her name is Trish McElhaney, and she's employed through the Clarion Housing Authority. So I don't know if that's funding that your housing authority can request from HUD to be able to hire someone for that position, but I will connect you with her so you can research that further.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, thank you very much for the comments, public comments, and thank you for the agencies. We really appreciate your taking time for your busy schedules to better acquaint us with some of the services that we might be able to tap into to make everything better for the residents that we serve. So thank you very much, and you're certainly welcome to stay, but I know you all have busy schedules. Resident Council's report.
I did not receive any further reports. Jackie, do you want to present?
No, I did not do a report, but I did send a letter to the board. It was in regards to the comment made that you're waiting on our lawyers to do the MOU agreement, and that isn't true. He sent information, and Attorney Ferry mentioned it January 8th, said that it was up to the board to take it from there, and offered you a red line version. So it's not on us. No. It's on the board.
It's not on the board, it's on me. I'll own that one. Jackie's been tough on me today.
Again, I don't know if it's a motion, but can we get that MOU in front of us next time? Can we expedite this process?
Yeah, at least my understanding is all of you have commented to me on the red line. I think even you did. I'll go back and check that, but I'm pretty sure you did. So I think it is in my.
I don't know that we ever.
I passed out red lines at one of the. Yeah, I don't remember.
Hard copies?
Yes, hard copies.
I think I actually have that at home.
The hard copy. Okay.
Yeah, I think you did communicate with me about it during something else we were doing, but I'll forward a draft of that. But I did get comments. I mean, it really is the ball's in my court with respect to that. Okay. And we do need to get that done.
And it's still within the topic at hand here. I mean, Jackie mentioned last time, Vanessa said the reason we don't have a pest control plan for you to consider is because we're waiting on the MOU. So I assume the answer is still going to be we're waiting on the MOU before we get a pest control plan. Otherwise, I think it'd be great to see a pest control plan, especially considering what we've been talking about. If we could see a pest control plan at the May meeting.
I don't know that I can answer that. I'm not involved with the pest control plan, but I mean, I can tell you that if I'm holding things up as a result of the MOU, I'll make sure that we're done with that.
Okay, so I'll make a motion.
Chris is going to need to look at the pest control plan because we're going to have to make sure if we have disciplinary action, because once we approve the pest control plan, it will be incorporated into the lease.
Right.
So
well, we see that before it's incorporated into the lease. Right?
You will, but I'm saying I want to get with Chris to make sure that we have all the legality in it before we present it. There's no sense of you reading 40 pages and then have to go back and read them again. I'd sooner present you with a good copy.
All right, so I'll make a motion to get a good copy by the May meeting.
No.
Well,
No. We have to do the MOU. Let's get that done. Something else too, Joe. We just ended the fiscal year. So you have to give the staff time to get the stuff prepared for the fiscal year.
You told us 2 months ago the pest control plan was basically ready to go.
It's pretty much ready. I just need to put my eyes on it. I know there were some other things we needed to add, but Chris still has to be able to have time to review it. So let's do the MOU, Get that totally done, and then I'll have the pest control.
Just so we're clear, if we give you another month and then another month, that will be a total of 4 months since you said it was ready to go. So my motion stands. My motion is to
say what your motion is.
My motion is to get whatever, as Vanessa put it, the good copy of the pest control plan by the May meeting. That's my motion.
And I second.
I have a question. Does our lawyer get a copy of that too?
Does your lawyer get a copy of the pest control plan?
Yeah. So he can have it.
Not until it's posted.
When it gets posted, everybody's going to get a copy of it. But we can't give anybody a copy of it until the board here has it. I mean, these folks get first opportunity to come up with a plan because it's their plan.
Our lawyer will have a copy of it.
When all the tenants do, Jackie.
Okay.
When we officially post it, then
He'll have it when you have it.
All right. That works for me.
So I've got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion about the motion?
Yeah, I have a discussion. All these are great ideas. We have a limited staff, and it's about time you realize it.
I do realize it.
No, you don't.
At some point on the agenda, we're going to discuss that. It's coming.
So, my negative vote has nothing to do with the merits. It has to do with the fact that we have a limited staff. You can only put so many burdens on the staff and expect a decent response. So you can go ahead with your motion. It's on the floor. And I'll call for the vote.
Well, I want to make a different comment or a related comment. But one of the issues that we're balancing here is we have a solicitor who's doing a lot of work for us. But again, we're not his sole, client. We are just a small piece of his work. And so I want to be respectful of the amount of time we're taking from him. And I think we need to be cognizant of that. I know he got some, and we saw them, some legal documents that have timeframes that he's in the middle of responding to and other things. So again, I'm just saying, we need to balance all of this.
And I want to remind the two senior board members, as well as Vanessa, that back in, I think it was the fall, I think it was August maybe of 2023, is when the Holland Towers Resident Council brought Kevin Quisenberry, their attorney, here. And the result of that conversation was that Kevin and Chris talked. We were going to provide, the Housing Authority was going to provide the Resident Council and their attorney with a draft MOU and a pest control plan. Right? And I'll remind you as well that it was back around the same time that Mike Kelly's office contacted HUD, who then sent back a response to Mike Kelly's office on which the board and Vanessa was CC'd. And back in 2023, when HUD directed us to come up to negotiate an MOU with the Holland Towers Resident Council and to have a pest control plan. That was in the fall of 2023. That was over a year and a half ago. So you're saying, we need more time. We need more time. You've had, up to this point, a year and a half to produce a pest control plan that was directed by HUD and an MOU that was directed by HUD to get those things done.
Well, and
so Dick, I am very aware about the staffing problem, but I'm also very aware that this has taken over a year and a half, and we're still kicking the can down.
The letter you refer to, this board demanded a meeting with HUD, which was held. Staff members came, and the agreement in that meeting was that we would work through the various documents. The MOU was the second document that we agreed to produce, and in fact, I know you mentioned Mr. Quisenberry. He was given over a month to provide comments to that document before we posted it, hoping that we could get this done faster rather than slower, but we didn't hear back from him. It was well after the other resident councils approved it that we heard his first input, which now, again, we are willing to address, but we can only juggle so many balls. So again, we did exactly what I'd asked. Pick each one, go down them, and our commitment was, let's get one off the table and begin the next. I understand that we have a pest management which has been continually tweaked, hopefully to fit with what we know and what our know's policy is. And so when we get it, we can act on it, I would hope. But again, we have to be realistic in what we can do. And you're talking about a document that we have met everything I'd ask us to do in that meeting.
No, we haven't, because we haven't produced either document.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Chris, can you restate the
motion? What I put down here is we've got a motion to produce a good copy of the pest control plan for the next board meeting for the board to be able to.
So we all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Don't think we're ready.
And I'm opposed. Marcia?
Yeah, I disagree. Again, you have something, I guess we can send that out, but that's not, it's going to be tweaked a lot, so I find it to be redundant, but I can do that.
All right, moving on, the report of the solicitor and the executive director.
So the solicitor, there's a good bit of items here that I likely will be involved with, so I'll defer until we get each item. I think it'll be easier to do that.
Okay, fine, thanks. Vanessa?
Okay. As far as my executive director's report, talk about the capital fund, I'll go ahead and jump ahead with that. All the defective fittings were replaced and tested. General contractor is repairing and finishing the drywall. We have currently 3 apartments that vacated that maintenance staff has been prepared for transfer of tenants, so we will be working on that in the next couple of weeks. We are focusing on the 17 stack. You were in 17, right? The 17 stack, because that is the one that we're very concerned that the sewage lines are not going to hold much longer. So we will be working. Kathleen was one of the first tenants that we had to move very quickly because of a broken toilet flange. So, and that's what I was stating, that, we'll be moving them. As far as the electrical upgrades, the majority of William Gill Commons is complete. The contractor's starting to transition to Elm, Chula, Maine, Autumn. So it's a lot different. They're not moving as quickly because Gill was designed. It was a lot easier. They could have the general come in and drill the holes, and they could run their lines, but then when they get into the other type of configurations, it's not running quite as smoothly. I'll just go down and hit, some of the other highlights. Quarterly exterminations are scheduled in May at Holland Towers. I did provide the board with, Kyle gives me a narrative. I go through and I take out all the addresses, just making a statement that we did recently add one. But as far as when we're exterminating, Jeff is in this building every week. He is exterminating apartments every week. And when he is in here exterminating, he does all the hallways and all the common areas. So I know Lynn commented about that. We are actually doing that. I mean, he is checking things. So in May, next month, he'll be going through and he'll be doing quarterly inspections. The notices was put in with the tenant bills that actually went in the mail yesterday. So hopefully hopefully we don't add any more. But you can see the notes of the different apartments that we're working with. And some of them might not have bugs, but because they get them and then they get rid of them, we are constantly staying there. There are a couple tenants that like Jeff to come in every week, just as their own precaution. So I do want to comment, John worked with Tim from Catabus. They came over, found a location, we marked a location, gave the approval. Unfortunately, Holland Towers is in the floodplain, so it's going to take a period of time because there's a lot of extra things that has to be done and has to be approved. So John told me that Tim sent an email that it would be several months before we could get it because they have to get all the approvals because of being in the floodplain. And we're familiar with that whenever we wanted to put a canopy out back. So we ran into the same thing. So, and just generically, as far as staffing, Charlotte Mitchell's been promoted to the property manager of Holland Towers. I have a resolution in the board packet to approve the organizational chart to create the Section 8 coordinator position, which needs to be created through civil service. I have the job description ready to go in once the board approves that. We're also creating an intern position so that we can hire, we're working with Crawford County Co-op to hire a Crawford County Co-op student. So I have that description just about ready to go. So those are 2 positions that will be created through civil service upon approval of the board's organizational chart.
Any questions?
Just a quick question about the units that have been taken offline. Nothing's changed there, right?
No.
I understand that, how to cave that, we still get subsidy for those
Yes.
units. Do we lose anything in terms of the rental revenue?
Well, yeah, because you're not renting them.
So
but you still get subsidy.
So each month that they're offline, we're losing rental revenue.
Right, but in most cases, Joe, because we're dealing with a lot of low-income family, we're not, our average rents, say at Gill, what are about $200 a month, maybe $200 to $300 a month. So it's not like thousands and thousands we're losing. The maintenance staff, the apartments that have had the electrical upgrades done. I guess I did write it here. The maintenance staff has been going in. We've been looking. We're upgrading the lighting. We're upgrading the smoke alarms. We're painting, cleaning, making all the necessary repairs. So the maintenance staff is working. If the units are done, they're working in them. And then as soon as they're completed and we have a tenant, then we put them back online. So we are working in them. We haven't forgot about them. They will not be offline forever. So as soon as the work is done, then we can get them rented up.
Thank you.
The housing related hazards and lead. Did you want to comment on that?
Oh, that was the electrical upgrades.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the grant. That is the $3 million grant that we were awarded. So.
Okay. So we're down to the maintenance report?
Elman Morgan.
Or Elman Morgan? Or?
Yeah, Elman Morgan.
I thought maybe you would have included that.
Well, they're kind of like together.
Yes, that's what I thought.
So anyways, the units are offline for renovation, so we're not doing any new leases. There were 8 annual recertifications, no evictions, no notices to vacate, no housekeeping inspections in March. Chris was able to get us some funds from the Court of Common Pleas, so you can see that some checks were received from the Court of Common Pleas throughout this report. And then just going down through, as far as the tenant's accounts receivable with the properties, you can see it's going down, but that's because we did the write-off of vacated tenants' accounts receivable. Unfortunately, there were a couple tenants that vacated at the end of March after we had the meeting, so those will be written off with the next batch that we write off. And the waiting list has pretty much stayed the same. We're working through that. And I did send you an amended copy because it wasn't on your first one. Let me just to keep rolling, Dick?
Sure.
Okay. Holland Towers, we have 53 vacant units. All our vacated tenants' accounts receivable have been written off. We do have a notice to vacate, and that was due to we had a recent death in the building that we are working with. Chris is working with us on that because the tenant did not fill out any paperwork for any family members. So Chris has been working with the coroner to find out if they can locate any family members. And the tenant also had a cat, which did not have a responsibility form filled out. So we're looking at it possibly, at one point, a staff person was looking at it, possibly a tenant is looking at maybe taking the cat. The cat has been seen to by staff on a regular basis, making sure it has food and water, making sure the litter is taken care of. So that is something we're working on here. Maintenance report. We had 261 work orders, 28 work orders are outstanding. I am pleased to inform the board that all the inspection work orders that were generated from Claire back in July have been completed. And there were a lot. So right now our focus, instead of going out doing any more inspections, our focus right now is to get the vacant units out at Gill, get those ready to go to be rented, and then, we'll start doing some more inspections again. As far as extermination, Holland Towers has 14, Gill has 8. Going on to Section 8, we still have 189 units under contract. 5 poured outs, 23 bashes, 1 home ownership, and 461 applicants on the waiting list. As far as the bash units, over the last couple months, we've been losing. We had someone that was over income. We've had a couple veterans pass away. I have since received about 5 referrals. I was in contact with the VA today on speeding up the process. So I sent them information. They can work with the vets to go and seek housing, and then we can get them placed in housing units. We haven't added any new contracts, no more new port-ins. There was 4 annual recertifications and 18 interim certifications. And our total expenses, you can see we're at $222,000. So with the payment standard increase, we do have some flexibility. I'm noticing that with that, we are probably are averaging maybe $20, $30 additional that we're able to pay the landlords, and it's switching so the tenants don't have to pay as much, and we're actually paying the landlords more. So that's how the increase of the payment standard has affected everything. During the month of March, we did 8 inspections. There was 1 new, and that was a transfer from 1 unit to another. 4 of them failed, and they have since passed. Applications, you can see the breakdown. There were 17 total, so you can see the breakdown of how many paper, how many online. So we are receiving online applications for all the bedroom units. But if somebody is applying for a 1-bedroom, they are not going to be able to place the application because those are not available. We don't have any 1-bedrooms available, and once somebody lives in a 1-bedroom, they pretty much stay there a pretty long time. Resident initiatives, Barb's working with both the family resident councils as far as the training for the summer lunch program. We'll be providing the bus for them to go, and we won't be deducting that out of their MOU money. We'll just take that out of our administrative funds, so that doesn't affect them for them to go and get trained to provide that service for our families. Easter parties will be held at William Gill and VFW in April, and so they'll have goodies for the kids. 23 children and adults went to the Mark to learn how to ice skate, and looks like they did the ceramics at William Gill on March 25th for 13 adults, and I guess they had a really good time. And that's all I have for reports, unless anybody has any questions.
I do. Can we get first question, can we get an answer to Miss Anthony about where she's at on the waiting list?
I can't sitting here, but I can get back to her, yes.
So I hope you get an answer within, is it feasible by the end of the week?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
The other question I have just regards the waiting list in general for both public housing and Section 8. As the rest of the board knows, we met with HUD yesterday. We had a long meeting. We covered a lot of different bases. But one of the things that came up in that conversation, HUD asked Vanessa what our policy was for cleaning up or purging the wait list. In other words, going through it to find out if the people who are on the wait list are still income eligible, if they're still interested in getting a voucher. They asked what our policy was. Vanessa, correct me if I'm wrong, you said you were going to look into that. Have you had time to look into that?
No, sir, I have not.
Okay. So I did. I looked at our Section 8 plan. It's very long. It's the table of contents itself for something like 20 pages. But there is a section on maintaining the wait list. It's section, it's on page 4-7. And I looked at it, and we do not currently have a policy for updating and purging the wait list. The only policies in that section, again, the section is Part 2, Managing the Wait List. This is in our Section 8 plan. The only policies we currently have are that we maintain a single waiting list for the HCV program, and we do not merge the HCV waiting list with the waiting list for other programs. So I'm curious, do we have so we don't have a policy for purging the Section 8 wait list. Do we have a policy for cleaning up the public housing wait list?
You have that policy too.
Where is it?
I gave you the administrative policy on that flash drive too.
So it's in the administrative policy.
The administrative plan is what covers public housing. So if you looked at the Section 8 plan. Now I will tell you what the previous director did is he contracted with Nan McKay. And you have to really be careful how you read that, because how Nan McKay did the policies, they would put in everything that the regs said, whether it's, required, optional, etc. So as you're going through that, you have to actually look to see if there will be little phrases that says, PHA policy or not PHA policy. So even reading through that, you have to be careful because everything is there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we do. And that was something very different from what I was used to because I did my own policies. I didn't contract that.
So just so I'm clear, I'm sorry, the administrative plan, is that like the 5-year plan? Is that
where
what is it?
In the admin. So
Yeah, it's an administrative plan. That policy is probably just as big as the Section 8 one that
That's
I gave.
the ACOP?
That's the ACOP, the administrative plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Nan McKay, they are some kind of consulting agency?
They were a
that helps with
consulting
this?
agency that Bill had, yes.
And so the previous ED, called on them to help clean up the wait list. Is that what you're
No, he called on them to do the policies.
Okay.
So if there were changes, then they would send the pages and say to him, what do you want to do? And then he would incorporate that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you have to be real careful how you read that. You have to find out what is actually housing authority policy and what is not housing, because everything is there. HUD there's very limited stuff that HUD will that requires in some of the policies. It used to be that HUD required a lot of things in the policies, and they started coming out and leaving it to the discretion of the housing authority how they wanted to do it. So that's why you're going to see a lot of different variations.
Okay. Again, my inspiration is our meeting where we met with HUD yesterday. They told us explicitly and directly we should have a policy for purging the wait list for Section 8. We currently don't. I will check out the ACOP to see what our policy is on public housing. I would like to see us make some moves about getting these wait lists cleaned up because who knows? Do we know when the last time that was?
Well, the thing is, the Section 8 waiting list, we just opened it in April of 23. And looking at it, I made the mention yesterday, looking at it even deeper, we are going to go ahead and do that. We are going to send letters out to all the tenants on the wait list, over the last, couple years to make sure they're still interested and update any information that we will need. So we are planning on doing that.
But we still need a policy to purge the list? Is that what it is?
Well, we can still go ahead and do it. There's no sense of having 461 names if, some of them aren't interested anymore. So we can still do it because HUD regulation allows you to do it.
Right, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought at the meeting yesterday she said that we needed a policy though. We actually have to have a written policy.
I thought it was in the policy, and if I look further, there's got to be something there. I cannot believe there's nothing there. Especially since they had the waiting list closed here for 8 years before we opened it in 2023. So, and because it was total chaos, I will not close that waiting list again. I'll just keep it running. I don't care if there's 1,000 names on it. That was just crazy.
So just as a heads up, I'm not going to make another motion on this, but I think, I would like to see some kind of policy for purging the waiting list. I'll check the ACOP.
Actually, Joe, that whole policy needs revamped.
Okay.
It needs an overhaul.
Okay.
So it would be better for us to go through and do an overhaul on that than do some bits and pieces. Because when you do bits and pieces, you forget what you did.
So my concern are people like Colleen, who, is somewhere on that waiting list. She might be able to get housing sooner rather than later if we are able to clean up those lists sooner rather than later.
We're looking into it, yes.
But I guess what I'm saying is, as a heads up, I hear Dick's comment about the staff. So I'm saying I'm not going to put too much pressure on you right now. But if we don't see any progress on this by next month, I'm going to call for a motion at that point to say I would like to see.
I told you we're going to send letters out, and we'll see who's interested and who's not interested.
I understand, but I want to.
And I will get back to Colleen as far as where she's at on the waiting list.
Right, and as the HUD people said, when you proposed to send out mailers in the meeting yesterday, they said, well, what happens if they all respond, and how they're going to respond, and how you're going to deal with that? In other words, what's your policy? So we need to have a policy in place to deal with that once the result of you sending the mail.
There are things in the regs. So if there's something different in the regs than is in the policy, then you can follow the regs whether the policy is adopted or not. If the regs suggest of purging it and how you handle it, then we can still do it too.
Okay, so I'm simply asking for you to bring that to our attention at the next meeting if you could. What is that policy?
Can I ask a question about the Section 8 landlords? Has anybody gone through that list that you give out? Ever?
It's the one that Sue had originally, and I know she's tweaked it over the years.
My brother called a bunch of them when he wanted to move before. He was thinking about it, and a lot of them do not take Section 8. And they were not very nice about it.
Okay. Well, anytime I did anything like that, I would basically send letters out to the landlords and have them put in writing whether they were willing to be on a list for that or not. So that is something that, can be done.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further on that subject? If not, we'll move to resolution number 1 to amend the administrative personnel policy. Pretty simple forward, which involves the organizational chart, which was submitted in your packet, which allows us to create the position of Section 8 coordinator, which may sound a little bit odd, but Sue King really had the title of a property manager because she was both a property manager and a Section 8 coordinator. So by doing this, we will create a specific position for Section 8 coordinator. Are there any questions?
Is there an additional personnel policy? So this is the organizational chart, but there's an additional personnel policy, correct?
There is a personnel policy.
That was not included in our packet unless I missed it, right?
No, because it was adopted in 2022.
Right, but the resolution refers to that policy.
Right. The only thing that's changing in that policy is the organizational chart.
Right. I'm simply asking for, it'd be nice to see it as new board member. I've never even seen the personnel policy. So
Are you sure I didn't give you the personnel policy?
Yep.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to approve resolution number 1.
So move.
Actually, I still have just one question. Who's the director of housing management? I'm pretty sure I know everybody else.
It was John, but John was promoted to the deputy executive director. So some of these positions are vacant. I'm just not doing away with them to give us flexibility because it takes a lot of work to add the positions. It looks like we have a lot of staff. For example, the administrative assistant. Tammy was originally hired as an administrative assistant and then was promoted to property manager, but she wore both hats. So that is still on the civil service complement. So it's easier just to leave them there to give you the flexibility to move people into positions than taking them off and then going back and recreating them.
I was just curious. I'd never heard of that.
So we've
got a motion from Marcia. We need a
Is there a
second.
second? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution number 2, which deals with the potential conflict between the authority and Common Roots with regard to Section 8 vouchers. Everybody has a copy of the resolution. So, are there any questions?
Likely should discuss resolutions. You're only going to pass one of either 2 or 3 if you pass any. So I would suggest before you put any motions on the floor that you have your discussion with respect to the issue up front. That'd probably be easier for you, I think. But,
Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Chris.
One resolution is that the current tenants lose their housing. The second resolution, or the third, I'm sorry, the second and the third. The third addresses, us requesting a waiver.
I fully understand what the resolution is saying.
Well, that's what he was saying. They're both. It's one or
I don't
the
think
other.
you're going to pass both. I mean, it makes sense if you're going to have a discussion, have one discussion, and then figure out where you're going, as opposed to having a discussion about each resolution.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
And I don't know. I mean, and I'm happy to foster the discussion if that helps any, I suppose. And we did have a meeting with HUD yesterday where these items were discussed. The resolutions, the language essentially comes from some directives that we received from the HUD office. The first one deals with eliminating the vouchers or transferring the vouchers, and the second one deals with the waiver. I'll address the waiver in a little bit more detail. I submitted a waiver letter for us before with respect to this. The discussion that we had yesterday with 2 board members participating was with 4 HUD people. The discussion that we had in November was with 2 HUD people. The lead person was Lee, who is the way I see the hierarchy here is Lee's job is to deal directly with us, but he reports to Jacqueline, is the way it looks like to me. Jacqueline participated in this particular meeting. My takeaway is that, and Joe he asked a lot of the same questions I asked in November with respect to the issues. Got a lot of the same types of answers as far as we asked direct questions in the hopes that we might get more direct advice, and it didn't come out that way. One thing that I did pick up, which I've mentioned in a prior meeting here, is that they're pretty clear, and I think this is coming from Jacqueline, in that they want the process to be that you guys pass a resolution that directs the executive director to do something, whether that's number 2 or number 3 here. And I asked, are there other options that we might be able to use here? That was a no. So, I mean, it looks like the only 2 options that they're considering here are the 2 that we presented to you. There was another potential solution that they viewed, that Jacqueline, I think, particularly, but that particular solution is not an option. That she can't control that, we can't control that, only Joe would be able to control that particular option, and so that's off the table. So we'd have to follow one of these 2. If you choose the third resolution, I would, we asked basic questions along the lines of, hey, if you're advocating for us at the HUD, the field office level, because it sounds like this goes to the general counsel, the office of general counsel, how about some ideas as to what would enhance our argument, that type of thing. Didn't get much of that. I believe the quote with respect to my letter, in my letter I put an allegation of good cause with respect to, hey, when Joe was appointed to the board, these vouchers were in existence long before that point in time. There couldn't have been any shenanigans associated with his appointment and the vouchers themselves. The quote in response is that argument was a lightweight argument. So I don't know, it doesn't sound good in that sense, but when pressed later on, Jacqueline indicated that this wasn't a case where the waiver would be automatically granted or would be automatically denied. It was one of those 50-50 things. It's the way that she described it. So they did indicate that Vanessa would need to continue the recertification process if we did follow this particular method, and they're not sure with respect to the current federal governmental issues going on as to how long it would take for the review to be completed. If you choose the third route, one of the things that Resolution 3, one of the things that I will do in assisting Vanessa in being able to make the waiver request is I'm going to go back at the HUD folks to see if we can enhance what I put in my initial letter. I don't know what else I could actually say. What I'm interested in is, it seems to me that they would know what the criteria is when these things get reviewed. But they're not saying what the criteria is, because obviously if I knew what the criteria was, I'd list those things in my letter. If we could meet the particular criteria, I would give that another effort, but we would certainly want to get, if we choose the resolution number 3 on this, we want to get this out immediately so they're reviewing it immediately, at least start it, because it sounds like it might take a while for them to proceed. Now, I will say, from a common sense perspective, it's not like these things are a mystery to them. I mean, we've raised this, I think, going all the way back to September. I mean, my memo was out there all the way back at that point in time. So the facts and the circumstances aren't any different today than they were back then. So to me, it really shouldn't be that difficult for, whether the answer is a good answer or a bad answer, for us to get an answer. But that's what was described in the call. This resolution number 2, this comes specifically from language that Jacqueline provided, I believe, in an email earlier. And she, in her indication in the discussion was simply, this eliminates the conflict. In this particular instance, with respect to the vote on whatever, if any of these get moved, Joe will obviously have to recuse himself from the vote. I'll be up front. a 2-2 vote is a denial. I mean, I can't move without a vote where we have a majority vote. So, so the next question I suspect that you're thinking about is that if you're not able to come to some sort of a consensus with respect to this, what happens? That would be a good question. I'm not sure of the answer. I mean, that the ball would be in HUD's court with respect to what happens. We wouldn't control that as far as how they would react. I do think, their language for this is that this is our problem. We need to solve our problem. So that's the background of the call for the folks that weren't on the call, at least, so you have some perception of at least the way I viewed it. Now, it could be other conclusions were drawn, but that's a lot of questions were asked with respect to, if you were going, the field office has to make a recommendation. If we choose the third resolution, they would have to make a recommendation on the general counsel. Seems to me like they could tell us what that recommendation would be.
During that meeting, didn't they say they would fully support a recommendation? I'm pretty sure
They said that they would support what we choose to do. Whatever we choose to do.
So if we send them a waiver, they would fully support that.
The interest that I have in this is that I'd like to see, how they're going to do that. And we were asking those questions. I'm not trying to say anything negative with respect to them. I suppose they have their own positions that they have to protect. I'm not in those seats, and I don't don't know what goes on daily with respect to that. And maybe I'm oversimplifying it by saying, hey, when Joe's asking him, hey, why can't you tell us such and such? As a question I asked, months ago and got the same answer. So, and I don't understand that, but because it doesn't seem that complicated to me.
Did they at all give you any indication what sanctions would be if we're unable to resolve it?
No, they didn't get into that. I know that in my memo I referenced that with respect to the law. I will give my impression, which probably is worth absolutely nothing because I don't know what they're thinking, but they haven't acted aggressively. I mean, there's been a lot of time that's gone on here. Other than to say they want us to do this particular process now in this particular way, they haven't taken any actions with respect to surcharges or anything of that sort. Now, we started out, I think, with 3 vouchers. I think there's 2 now. And my impression is that if we chose the resolution number 3, they did indicate that they would work with us, which I took that to mean that they would let the thing play out in order to see what transpires without acting against us. That's the way I took it. She didn't say that exactly, and we couldn't get that kind of a direct answer, but that's the way I took it.
The one thing I would add is I did ask the question, I said, have you granted waivers, has HUD granted waivers in similar situations? And the quote was, yes, and yours is not radical. So our request is not radical. That was the language used, especially if you, meaning me, recuse yourself and issue no new vouchers to common roots while Joe is on the board.
Any further discussion?
I mean, I think that resolution 3 makes sense since we already basically voted to ask for a waiver. We already asked Chris Ferry, it was a board consensus, maybe not a vote, maybe that was the wrong word, but we've already asked him to do that. So we're just asking now, we have to ask Vanessa. The problem was that the waiver request has to come from the board through Vanessa. That's why when Chris sent his letter, he didn't get a response. Because HUD wants it to come from us.
Okay. Nothing further. I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2.
I vote for number 2.
That's a motion to.
It's a motion for number 2.
Is there a
Too many
second?
conflicts of interest, I just can't do it.
Even though the residents will lose their place to live?
We will assist the residents and pay for all their moving and help them find places to live. That's part of what this says.
But they don't want to move.
I understand that, and I really do feel for them. But
You're gonna find
we
them an
did-
apartment?
We did not create the conflict, I'm sorry.
I feel like we do have a pretty good way to resolve it, though. It's just two people.
I'll second the motion for resolution number 2. Any further discussion?
I just want to underscore the choice in front of us. Essentially, if you vote for resolution number 2, you're going against the wishes of the people who currently live in those houses. They came here, their representative came here, they spoke to us. Some of them have lived in those houses for, 30 years? They're asking to stay in those homes. I also want to remind you, like Sina already did, back in November, the whole board asked Chris, right, gave Chris permission to request a waiver. So now not only are you going to ask these people to move out of their house that they've lived in for 30 years, you're also going to backtrack and go against what we all agreed to do when we had Chris send the waiver in November, the waiver request in
I don't
November.
think we agreed to the waiver.
Chris, can you please provide some clarification?
There was consensus among the board members at the time to send the waiver.
There were no objections.
Okay, any
That's
other
basically
discussion?
what we're doing, is we're doing the same thing, same setup right here.
Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Negative?
Nay.
Nay.
I'm recusing myself.
I'm right. Okay, the motion, the resolution is defeated. We move to resolution number 3. The waiver. Any further discussion?
What do you motion?
Well, I know. I'm on. Okay, entertain a motion to approve resolution number 3.
Well, he's asking for the motion.
I have a
Are
motion.
you making the motion, Tina?
I'll second.
Okay, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, opposed?
Nay,
No.
I can't.
Okay. So neither resolution has been adopted, and as I said, I'm not familiar with HUD's procedures, rules, and regulations, so
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
I have a question. What is my brother, what does this mean?
That means nothing's changed at this point in time.
So is he gonna, his recertification was already up. As a landlord, I have not received recertification papers, where Sue used to send them out 3-4 months in advance. My tenant has been calling for months because he usually got his months in advance. The inspections would have already occurred. Dan would have already been in there. He's never failed an inspection. We just bought that building like a year ago.
Yeah, and I need to talk to HUD office to see what I'm allowed to do. That was our call yesterday to discuss this. So now that the board has voted on these, I need to go to HUD office and.
I'm just worried about my tenants.
Can I ask what the board thinks Common Roots, like what will benefit Common Roots? What's going to be different just because Joe's on the board?
His wife is the executive
I
director.
understand that, but
It's a violation of federal law. It's not our law. HUD has a restriction on.
But they said you could have
But
a
you
waiver.
can ask for
Well,
a waiver.
again, very carefully, as long as there's no conflict. But in every meeting, we've had conflicts on the Section 8 program recorded.
No, we
And-
haven't.
We inherited
No, we haven't.
Well,
Dan.
you
We
made a
inherited
motion
Dan
yourself to raise
Section
the
8.
payment standards.
You, just because you're saying it's a conflict does not mean that HUD thinks it's a conflict. Again, the choice before you was clear, right? You could have requested a waiver, which would have also included recertifying these vouchers for these tenants so they could stay in their homes. You voted against it, and your excuse is, we're creating conflicts left and right.
We've inherited
HUD
all
will
the vouchers.
sanction us, and we want to know what the sanctions are.
Okay.
That's what we've asked.
You're willing to risk the sanctions rather than simply request a waiver?
We have addressed the resolutions. We're moving on. The treasurer's report.
Just if anybody has any questions.
Anybody have any questions on the treasurer's report, which was in your packet? Revised. Oh, no, not revised. That was
No.
the other thing that was left.
Treasurer's report was okay. I sent that out
I
early.
entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm not going to vote in favor because I haven't had time to review it. I asked for at least 48 hours. We were given part of it, and we've been getting updates. So I don't feel comfortable in voting in favor of it without.
I record that as an abstention. I didn't hear your votes.
I'm going to abstain as well.
No, it's votes 2-0, and the treasurer's report's approved.
No,
Oh, no, it's not a quorum, you're right. Okay.
do it next month.
Next month, we'll table the treasurer's report until next month. Report of committees, we do not have committees. Unfinished business for discussion. First item, election of chairperson. And I will propose that we place that on the agenda for the next meeting.
It's on the agenda for this meeting.
No, it's not on the agenda for this meeting. These are items for discussion, not for voting.
They're items for potential deliberation and action. So, I mean, if somebody brought a motion, we would deal with the motion. This item was discussed in the new business in the last meeting, so that's why it's on the agenda for this meeting. Now, you can elect not to, just because stuff is in is in this category, doesn't mean you have to deliberate over it, but it's available to be deliberated over if somebody makes a motion.
I'll put a little pepper in the soup. I'm happy I will volunteer to be chair.
And I'll second the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on.
Does that mean I take over at this point in the agenda?
You may have the gavel, sir.
Thank you very much, Dick.
And I may leave soon because, I don't intend to listen to a lot of more crap.
All right, item number B under unfinished business, annual housekeeping inspection. So I don't know if you have any updates, Vanessa. I recall that this was something I requested, and we got a consensus from the board. And what I requested was to have a procedure, a draft of a procedure. I know there was some discussion about the difference between a policy and a procedure. You said if there's a policy, it involves the lease and all this other stuff. So I said, can we see a procedure? So that's what I requested. As far as I can tell, there was no procedure, there was no draft in our packet. So why not?
It's the end of the fiscal year.
So
There were other priorities that are required to get done by HUD, and those priorities are going to take precedence over a policy.
So just so we're clear, you had a consensus from the board to present us with a draft procedure, and you're openly
I don't
notifying.
believe there was a full consensus. I believe it was your request that you were asking for it.
We did have a consensus, and the majority voted that we wanted that.
Okay, well, I don't have it.
I'll make note of that, and I will reiterate my motion I'll make an official motion so we can have a vote on it. I make a motion that we have a drafted procedure for annual housekeeping inspections, that it includes a checklist, as Ms. Commons requested, that it includes a written response to tenants, that it includes a note of any improvements if they were to fail an inspection.
Can I add to that already?
Joe, we do that already.
Can I add to that? Because I used to live in housing and I had a housekeeping inspection. I did not get any kind of response as to whether it passed, failed. I did not get anything on the checklist where I failed, what didn't pass. I got nothing. So, and I've heard from other residents that that's the case for them. That they come in, they do the inspection, they don't know whether they passed or failed the day of. It used to be when Bill Thomas was here, were given a housekeeping checklist that told you what to clean, what was expected of you. That was a week before.
Well,
we got a
Bill's not
specific
here.
date, we got a specific time, let me finish please. And then when the inspector came in, the inspector had that checklist. They would go through your house, they would check off if you passed or failed on each specific item that you knew you had to clean. At the end of the inspection, the inspector would have you sign it And it would say pass or fail right there, right on the day that you got inspected, so the person would know. And so that was how it was handled. It's not being handled that way. So people don't know whether they've passed or failed. They don't know what they're supposed to do. That's all we're asking for. I want to see that.
I believe when
procedure
Tommy does
written.
her inspections, she sends you a letter out, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just referring to the procedure, though.
But that is the procedure.
That's not what I'm hearing from residents, and it's not my experience as a resident since you've taken over the housing authority.
I know that there was one point in time when we were doing them, as far as something being left, we were trying to do a 2-part paper, and we would leave a copy when we would go. Since we moved the offices, we have not been able to get that 2-part paper to work. I did speak with Kyle about this, so when we do the inspections, even with the extermination, we are going to have printed cards, color-coded, whether you pass or fail, and what needs to be done. So we're already putting it in place. We're already putting it in place, and we're going to do it. Why do we need a policy to do it? We're working on it. We're going to do it.
So, again, Jackie brought this to our attention as the president of the Holland Towers Resident Council. So she's representing the residents in Holland Towers. Sina, herself, a former resident, both saying that we're not doing it the way that
We weren't doing it. We're going to do it in the future. That's what I said. I talked with Kyle. We're looking at a plan. We're going to do something like that. It doesn't need to be written in a policy. I'm assuring you that it will be done in that fashion. Tenants will be notified when they get exterminated or they do the exterminated inspection, whether they pass or fail. We will be leaving something. If we do housekeeping inspections, they'll be notified with a card whether they pass or fail. We are only required to do annual inspections, which we've been doing. Housekeeping is on an as-needed basis. So doing a policy on a housekeeping inspection is as needed. Typically, we do housekeeping inspections on tenants when the maintenance staff is in doing work or they're, doing inspections. When I go out and do the inspections, like I do with the city inspector, if I see things while I'm out there doing that inspection, I refer that to the manager. So we are doing all that. It doesn't need to be put in writing and passed by the board because we are doing it.
I still think it needs to be put in writing for the residents' sake, so that if some of that procedure isn't followed, they know what the procedure is. Because when I asked what policy was, I was told,
Then we'll
this
put
is
it in the
just
lease.
policy.
We'll just amend the lease, Sina, and we'll put it in the lease, and then they'll know the procedure.
And
So when we can amend the lease, we'll amend the lease. We'll include the inspections and how it's all going to be handled, the procedures, and we'll incorporate the pest management plan, so that way everybody will know everything. So if we do something, then it's already there. And then the lease is the contract with the housing authority and the tenant.
So I'm going to keep my motion because, again, my motion is, and I'm inspired again by Jackie's suggestion as well as the discussion presented by CHAPS, where they're doing weekly, right, in some cases, inspections, housekeeping inspections.
I don't have.
And I understand.
We don't have the apartments that we have.
I understand
We
this
have
as well.
347 apartments.
I completely understand, right?
Are you going to inspect 347 every week?
We're not suggesting.
No, that's-
He said that was
You
his
are.
inspiration. That was his inspiration. He didn't say he wanted that for me.
They have 50 apartments.
So I'm saying my motion on the table is to see a plan for us to do, at the very least, annual housekeeping inspections that includes written reports to tenants on the spot, like Sina described, that has been done in the past, a clear checklist for what needs to be in order, as well as a clear explanation for what needs to be improved if they should fail an inspection. Iris?
Yes. All right. I may be hated for this by some, but I've never had a problem with the inspections. I knew what I had to do. And I've always been told whether I passed or not, and I've always passed.
So if that's what's happening across the board, but again, like Jackie has said, that's not supposed to happen. So all I'm asking for is to simply get this down in writing and make sure we can commit to it, make sure we can put checks in place to make sure this happens.
We used to have, when we were scheduled, what was supposed to be done with the inspections and with the exterminations, we were always told, move things away from the wall and that.
Right, so that would be preparing for an extermination. We were talking about annual housekeeping.
I know, but we were always told what needed to be done.
And how many times in the last 5 years were you inspected?
Quite a few.
How many? Every year?
Yes.
I wasn't.
I have always been inspected.
I wasn't.
And I've always passed. Tommy Joe knows that.
So Jane, we can.
Vanessa knows that.
Sorry, guys.
Not everyone here has been inspected every year.
Sorry, guys, I have to go to work.
So my motion still stands. Jane, do you want to stick around for this motion?
Yeah, just gotta go.
So the motion on the table that I'm putting there is that we have this plan drafted for this annual housekeeping inspection as I just outlined. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gotta go, guys.
All those opposed?
I abstain.
All right. Since Jane had to leave, I'm going to propose that we'll see what happens, actually. Jane said when she was leaving, she said it's okay if we continue or we table things. So the next item up is bus stop. Any updates on the bus stop?
I gave you the update on the bus stop.
That was discussed.
I gave you that the director's report.
Okay.
That it was in the flood zone and it's going to take several months for that.
So that's the update, that it's going to take several months. All right. It was just listed here. You put it on the agenda at this place, so that's why I'm asking if there was anything additional to add.
No.
Okay. The January 29 meeting minutes, that was from the work session. I believe I requested that those minutes be available for approval. I made those minutes available for approval. In fact, I sent them out to the board and our solicitor, I think it was 2 months ago and counting now. So I believe that, I guess I would ask if there's a motion to approve those minutes.
I thought Chris was editing these.
My suggestion with those minutes is similar to what you're doing with your minutes from the last meeting here. I mean, I do think if some board members have some issues with some of that language, you probably ought to submit some of that. So I think we might be better off recirculating that, giving everybody an opportunity to forward in their opinion with respect to that in the same fashion that you're doing with the minutes that we just handled. I don't think we necessarily have to. There's no vote on that would be required right now. We just move to the next item, and we just make sure we put that on the agenda for the next meeting. If that makes sense.
Any questions?
Do we need to make a motion?
You don't need to make a motion.
It's just going to be on.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed it here, and we'll carry it forward. You don't have to make motions for things to appear on the agenda. I think you just have to raise them here.
Okay, I'll recirculate those minutes, and we'll have them on the agenda for vote to approve at the next meeting. The next item on the agenda under unfinished business, social media policy.
I'll comment on that and the policy regarding posting of the recordings. I think that if it depends upon the board's level of interest with this. I mean, if you look at, like, say, the city of Erie or the city of Meadville, they have their own policies. Not all entities use the same policies. I think Joe circulated something with respect to what I would call like an employee's social media policy. What I think I'm getting at there is just simply if the board has an interest as to what social media are you going to be on, where you want your stuff to be, as far as, there's a whole bunch of things you could be on. If you choose that, you could delegate that to the executive director. If you've got specific views as a board, you could create a motion that says, look, we want to be on these social media platforms. With respect to the posting and the recording, anybody can record these meetings. There's not an issue with respect to that. And just give you an example of a policy that I see with respect to some of what Erie does. They won't post their recorded meeting until the minutes of that meeting has been approved. Not everybody does it that way, but I've seen that with some entities. So that's a choice. Because you're not obligated to have to post the thing if you don't want to post it, but you certainly can. And so different entities choose the different timing. They may want to wait until the minutes have been approved before that official recording gets placed on the website. I know for attorneys like myself, that's frustrating as all get out when I'm trying to prepare for one of those meetings, because it's usually several months behind. But that can be a board policy. I think we're not a big entity here, so that's probably why we haven't had discussions like this in the past. But it's really your choice with respect to the manner in which you want to do it. I've commented as far as the right to know stuff, in the sense that, if we're going to record things, we want it to be done officially through the housing authority. Some employee is delegated to record that and to post it. I recognize that board members may be able to do that, but that's an awkward way to do it if we have to respond in the future to what the official recording is and things of that sort, for any type of dispute about the quality and things of that sort. So that's all that I'm getting at as a discussion item here. I don't know that. I think it would make sense, especially if let's say Joe's got a real interest in this and the other board members don't have a real interest in this. This isn't so much a legal thing as it is, so one person comes up with a policy that they like to see, and then we circulate that through the board packet, and then you come in at a meeting, and then you can decide whether you want to vote on that or not. I think that's the best way to approach it. Because you don't want me directing you as to, I don't know anything about social media, so, where you should be and the manner that you should be on the social media platforms, obviously, as far as comments and things of that sort. But that's why we've been talking about this in the last several meetings, so that's why I followed through with it and putting it on as a potential deliberation item. You don't have your fifth person, I suppose, she might have a comment with respect to that as well. So that is those two I see together.
Quick question on that one. There's nothing that stops anybody in the audience from taping our meetings at any time and posting them on their websites, their organizations. Right. And again, I think that's one of the questions is we're not really preventing them from being posted. It's a question of, do we want to incur the cost and the time of staff and others to do that, I guess.
Right.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand.
Well, and I will remind the board that at our February meeting under new business, Chris was not here, but I did make a motion that we record the meetings and that we post them to our website. And the board agreed. We had an affirmative vote, which is why I've recruited Jason Sackle, who we've recorded the last two meetings. So as a board, we've already voted in February.
We voted about looking at doing that, but now we're hearing there are issues with that. I'm very apprehensive when we don't control the text. I don't care who posts it. If they do it, you tape it, he tapes it, anybody tapes it and posts it.
So what I'm hearing, Chris's suggestion is that from here on out, when we record the board meetings, we use housing authority equipment, right?
Well, you can retain somebody, even if somebody's willing to do it for free. Mm-hmm. You can have an agent that does it for you, but you have to. I think that it's smart to have an official process for recognizing that. If we're looking at this 5 years from now, we want to know how it was done and who did it, and so that we would be able to authenticate that if we're in court or something and we have to deal with that issue. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't have to be. It should be controlled by the housing authority. So it's either the housing authority doing it or their agent that they've appointed to do it for them. And you can pay people to do that, or that's perfectly plausible.
Well, we have people who are willing to do it, and John Ketchum, our deputy director, he did say he's willing to do it, and that's initially what we did. And he
said he can't do it on his personal phone. The other thing is when I was, Chris, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I was looking for some other things under the Sunshine Law. There was something there that you needed to have procedures when you're recording meetings. So you have to have detailed procedures on how you're recording it, So that was something that I ran across, and having procedures, with everything So that way you're covered on how the stuff is archived, maintained, how it's done, who's doing it, et cetera, et cetera.
That's my point.
To provide you with those resources, is that what you're asking?
I think that, I mean, part of the procedures needs to be something along the line that you know, obviously it has to be lawful, but you're not obligated to record a meeting. So I'm not telling you have to do these things, but if you choose to do them, then we have to have some sort of an outline as how we're doing that so that we can, you know, she's talking about archival. I'm thinking more in the sense of, I mean, I agree with that.
That's a good point, though,
Yes,
that you brought
it
up.
is. And, you know, I'm thinking of more on the line of authenticating, you know, we would have to have a records person. You know, so part of our procedure would be is, you know, such and such, you know, the title of whatever job is John's job, whatever it happens to be. That person is responsible for, you know, these services with respect to, you know, recording and posting.
But that could be fitted under a current employee's job description, correct?
It
Because like
could,
the city of Meadville, you know, they used to post live recordings, live streams on their Facebook page of their meetings, and I
Right.
believe they just had one of their employees do that.
Yeah.
So it's not like you got to create a new position.
You don't. No, you don't.
I guess my concern is that it seems like this should be extremely simple and straightforward, and yet we've been working on it since January, right? The idea was initially proposed at the January work session. I made the motion to record the meetings and post them to our website in February. And we're still spinning our wheels saying, well, we need to have this procedure in place now. And I get that, and I get
Well, it
the
sounds
reason
like you
why.
passed the resolution, you said in February.
Right.
So it sounds to me like I think you just may need to amplify it.
Okay.
I think that's probably all you have to do. So, you know.
So any suggestions as to how to amplify it so we can just get this ball moving?
Well, I mean, I think some of it depends upon what you as a board are interested in. I think you got to identify the social media platforms that you're interested in. I mean, I suppose this to me seems like it would be like less than a one-page deal. I mean, as far as information, I don't have any problem forwarding something to you with respect to what other folks do, so that you can at least see what they do. It doesn't mean you have to do it their way, but that would give you a format for what you could do.
Right. So again, I'm continually befuddled about the procedure for proposing this stuff because I've never had more difficulty. I sit on the RDA, I attend council meetings regularly. I've never encountered more difficulty forwarding any kind of plan or procedure. But in this case, I guess what I'm looking for is simply to record these meetings, to put them both on YouTube, create a Facebook page, put them on Facebook so that they're publicly available in those two spaces. Also have a link to our YouTube version of it on our website. And the guidelines I forwarded from the city, those were for official social media, the part that I think is relevant, that you all received. You all received that email weeks ago. Official social media use for employees managing the official City of Meadville social media accounts. So these are guidelines for their staff who manage their Facebook page.
Right.
And it includes things like ensure all content is professional, factual, and consistent with the municipality's values and missions. Obtain approval from the designated department head or communications officer before launching new official accounts or posting sensitive topics. Avoid political endorsements, commercial promotions, personal opinions. Protect confidential, proprietary, and sensitive information, including return of residents, internal matters, pending legal issues. Comply with applicable laws. That seems like, why don't we just use their guidelines and then start posting this stuff?
You could if you want to do that.
So I guess, do I have a motion for doing that?
You could move to do that.
Okay. So Cena's made a
They're
motion?
not posting video content though, are they?
Yeah, they do. They post video content. They post links to the recording on their website. They have a Facebook
Well,
page.
but the links that they're posting to are for Armstrong. They're not taping them. Armstrong is.
But in the past, they've also recorded their own meetings and work sessions and then they posted them on Facebook. They've live streamed them on Facebook before without Armstrong. So there's a motion on the table to do exactly.
You made the motion, right?
Cena made the motion.
Cena made the motion.
Basically, to record the meetings. What was the motion?
Well, record the meetings and then adopt the city's That seems pretty straightforward.
You got a number, is there a number associated with that on the city's?
I sent you.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. So I mean, you're talking about a portion of what you sent, though, aren't you?
Right.
A lot of what you sent was a lot of other stuff. But
It's the first section titled "Official Social Media Use."
Okay.
So it would include those guidelines, and then like in terms of where we post it.
Yeah, Facebook.
So basically, you need, the policy needs developed before making the motion, Joe.
Is that true?
Instead of just saying, I'm making the motion to do this, I think it would be better to actually have the policy so the entire board can see exactly what's going to happen.
Isn't the motion effectively the policy?
Not necessarily. It's not spelling out.
This is the argument about whether the motion is a good motion or not. I mean, you folks can make motions about whatever you want. I mean, I'm not here to tell you that you can or can't
Well,
make the motion.
how about this? So Cena's made the motion. I'll second. Discussion. So is there a discussion in terms of everything we've already outlined? Are there things that you would like to see added that would require us to then go back and draft more?
I just think something needs drafted before the board moves forward.
I want to know, again, from my perspective, who's doing this and that kind of thing, creating, first of all, your YouTube and this links, as well as who's going to actually do the video and so on. I think we need that spelled out so that we know what we're committing to.
Right.
I'm not disagreeing.
Should we have a work session then to hash that policy out?
No, I think you can basically put something together.
I was going to say, I thought, from what I heard, I thought Joe was just going to sit down, write something at the next meeting, bring it, and we'll discuss
Well,
it.
I'm verbally articulating what that policy could be.
But you need to put it in writing so everybody
Do I
can
need
read
to put
it.
it in writing?
You got a motion, you got a second. I mean, it's up to the four of you as to whether they want it. Right?
And in terms of these concerns, we can make an amendment to the motion that would say, okay, a housing authority staff is going to be in charge of recording the meeting and posting it on YouTube and posting it on Facebook.
And see, that's what I have a problem with, given our staffing and other things right now. So again, that's what I'm saying. I want to see it in writing, what we're proposing, so that, I'm not opposed to having it out there, but it's who's going to do it and with what equipment. That's
all right. Well,
It's a one-page thing, Joe. You know what you want, just write it down, and then we just include it in the packet for May.
All right. So then I will table the motion and I will provide that written description, and hopefully eventually we will get a Facebook page after 5 months.
All right, so you're moving to table the motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Hey, wait, who's the chair here?
I'm just trying to help you out. All right, so you move past that.
All right, so moving on, civil service hiring. Is there a reason that's on the agenda?
That's on there. That came up at the last meeting. These came from my notes.
Okay.
So she dealt with that in your resolution number 1.
Okay.
So my notes came before some
I
of the
see.
stuff.
All right.
So
That's why there's doubling up.
yeah. So it's better to be safe than sorry with respect to what we want to deliver.
All right, 2 more items. Bylaws amendment.
And that's what we talked about, that we were going to work on the other policies ahead of the bylaws. But we talked about it, so it was put on the agenda.
But the board can amend its own bylaws, right? Can the board amend its own bylaws?
Yeah,
Sure.
and
There's
that's
a process
something
for
for-
amending. Yeah, I mean, I think that.
I think that would require a work session, so we could all look at the bylaws, look at HUD's website. I can bring in a bunch of information to show you what HUD says should be there and isn't there. We can have that discussion. I think I've asked for a work session before, honestly.
Either that or just put something together. Steve.
He's the guy now. So my memory on this is that there needs to be 2 people that request the work session. They may have to do it in writing to you or something like that. They don't have to do it right here.
So you requested the work session to discuss bylaws. As the chair, I have to wait for the second person, or I can just make a decision.
You're going off of my memory on this. My memory is that it would be safe because you have to schedule that, and we probably might have to advertise that to come upon. So I think it's better if you get it in writing, and then you come to me, and I'll help you do what you need to do.
Any questions about this?
No, I can do that.
Okay, last item, interagency agreements.
I did want to address that because we talked about that a little bit yesterday. And we talked about that at the last meeting. So after the last meeting, I did see communications from, I think it was the woman in Clarion. I thought I saw some other ones where they indicated that they weren't going to participate in an interagency agreement. So I didn't follow forward with that, taking them at their word. I saw or heard the discussion about that yesterday. I saw what the Jackie's suggestion was. So my response to all of that is I'm going to shoot her an email and ask her for some assistance with respect to that. I don't know all the players, and if in fact the people that we did reach out to really are interested, I'll find that out. If they continue to not be interested, that's fine. I mean, I can't force anybody to do that with us.
Chris, I can do that since I'm more familiar with the directors and what stuff is. I was planning on doing that anyways, because even Marcia and I were talking about.
Well, you guys would know the players. I don't know the players.
We know the players, so I know who I could go to and work things out as far as that goes. Plus, HUD office was going to. We talked about.
They said they would help. So.
Well, they said as far as I said about an interagency agreement as far as the home ownership program, and they were going to provide me with a list. So it's better for me to kind of run with that one since I have.
I have no issue with that.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
I do have something to say
Go
about
ahead.
that, though. At the meeting yesterday, HUD said that not only were they fully in favor of an interagency agreement to cooperate with other agencies, but they had been since September. So, I mean, I would make a motion just from the board to Vanessa that we would like to see her pursue that with other agencies, and we would like her to come back to the next meeting with a written report of who she talked to, what their responses were, and if they didn't want to cooperate, why. Because it was my understanding there were agencies that wanted to cooperate with us before all of this.
You've got a motion out there. Is there? Let Joe. I don't want to take your meeting over for you.
Is there a second? So the motion on the table is to have Vanessa pursue an interagency agreement and a written report, get the board a written report that explains who Vanessa talked to, what their response was, and if they can't work with us, like what the...
And just to fill you guys in, because you weren't at the meeting, HUD said that if we do that, they could provide us with an interim Section 8 coordinator. So somebody could come and do that job so that Vanessa would take it off Vanessa's plate. She wouldn't have to learn how to do it, doesn't have to train anybody. We hire someone, then that person will train them. So we would have someone to train that person. So that would take a lot of load off of that specific position. Plus, who knows who else they could lend us. And then that would solve our staffing issues, and then we could get on with it.
Well, again, having dealt in this arena before, I know that sounds wonderful, but it's not as easy. And in most cases, it's a remote staffer. It's not an on-site staffer.
So really quick, is there a second?
I can't.
Oh, I second.
I can't put that.
You made the motion. I'll second. I'll second the motion. And then further discussion?
Again, I just think that I've already heard her say she's going to do an interagency for home ownership. I leave it up to her. I know she's already working on your civil service, which we need. But if she wants to get an interagency agreement with someone to help with Section 8, I encourage her to do that. But I think us demanding who she talked to and what she did,
but I don't
that's
think
micromanaging the director. And
that's her job, though. The board is supposed to.
We're not supposed to micromanage her running.
I didn't
this
say we were
authority.
micromanaging her,
Well,
but
it is.
So this is a quote from our HUD meeting yesterday. Sina had referenced this. We've been proposing an interagency agreement since Sue left in October. This is unacceptable to our office. The board is the supervisor to the executive director. The board has the authority to take certain actions in the best interest of the residents. We've been proponents of an interagency agreement for a long time.
HUD's message to us was basically the board needs to be asking more.
So along the lines of this motion, I would make a friendly amendment to the motion that the responses and everything include emails. I would like Vanessa to email people when she reaches out rather than just making phone calls because it's hard to get the details. I would like when you reach out to different agencies and request these interagency agreements, I would like those requests to be in emails.
So we all know.
So that's the motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Can't do it.
All right, there's a pattern here. New business.
I'm curious, how do we go into executive session? Do we schedule that? How do we do that?
Well, you have to have a basis for going into executive session. So if you have one of the, it's something that's based on one of the exceptions to the open meetings law, usually we know that in advance, or at least the chairperson has an idea of that in advance, and we usually will put that on the agenda to indicate we're going to have an executive session, and then we identify the reason why we're going to have an executive. Let's say we're going to deal with a personnel matter or
Well, it
something
would
like
be a
that.
personnel matter.
And we would identify that, and that's how we would proceed with that.
So we get it on the agenda for a board meeting, and then we meet after the board meeting?
You can do your executive session anytime you want during the board meeting. I suppose you don't want people having to wait around for you. Usually most entities will do that at the end of what they'll do is after the very last item, say communications on here, they'll go into executive session. Then when they come back out of executive session, they would then adjourn the meeting.
My experience on the RDA is we hold executive sessions, and then at the next board meeting, we announce that executive session was held on this date to discuss blank.
Yeah, you are obligated to announce that at the next meeting.
But it's after the fact usually. So
well, I mean, you can have an executive session
whenever you
want. It's just that you do have to announce that. Usually when
and you can announce it after the fact.
You can, but I don't like to do it that way. Mike's usually asking me, up front because they don't want you going into some session to talk about something in secret that you should have been talking about in front of these people. So it's usually better if we're organized about how we're doing it, so that it doesn't look like we're doing something shady.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
But the point is you you call for an executive session. You say this is about real estate, this is about personnel, and that's it. Like that's the public announcement.
Right.
That's the essence of the
That's
public
the
announcement. So there's nothing nefarious about it.
And I usually announce it in my solicitor's statement. I always will refer to if we had an executive session at the last meeting. That's what we did. So that it's on public record.
So to follow your procedure, somebody from the board, if they want to hold an executive session to discuss one of these things, we go to Vanessa and we say, put this on the agenda that we're looking to hold an executive session on this date, and then it's on the agenda. Is that what you're suggesting?
You can either do that or you can come to me. Here's the practical problem that I run into with some of these. Sometimes the board members have an idea they want to have an executive session, but the reason they want to have the session isn't actually a lawful reason, and I don't know the reason in advance. So I'm getting called on the spot as to why we're having an executive session, and then we go into executive session and I realize, that shouldn't have been an executive session. So that's why I like to know in advance, and we can lay it out so that it looks better that way. Nobody is interested in challenging it because we've been upfront about how we're doing it. Now, obviously, things come up where maybe you have to have an executive session right now. Then what I probably would end up doing is talking to somebody on the side and during a break so that they could tell me what it is. Oftentimes, I'll be able to figure it out on my own, but sometimes I don't know what you guys are thinking. So I just don't want us to violate the law in any way.
Okay. So basically, we go to you.
Yes.
Anything else? Any other questions?
No, that answered my question.
All right. Communications.
I don't have any.
No. Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
Second. Move.
So, Sina, I think, made the motion.
Oh, sorry.
Second by Martha.
All those in favor?
Aye.